Alrighty, so just in case you're confused on how to create multiple buildings in perspective, I am going to go ahead and demonstrate that. So the first thing you're going to need to do is start off with a square, of course. Doesn't really matter where you put it as long as one corner is here on the sidewalk or maybe a little bit further back. Doesn't really matter, but you don't want to go directly up onto the sidewalk. So you need to start off with creating a perfectly vertical line, and you get a perfectly vertical line if you line up the edge of your ruler perfectly flush to the side of your paper. Maybe I'll go ahead and take it to the sidewalk just for this one time. Now I'm going to need to make my vertical edge. I'm going to say this building probably goes off the side of the paper. Now how big do I want to make this building? I don't want it to be super duper teeny tiny. That makes my city look super small and unnoticeable, so I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. Now my vertical line, the bottom edge of my ruler is going to line up to the bottom edge of my paper. Slide it over. It is very, very, very important that your lines are actually straight. Otherwise your building is going to look all kinds of wonky. The ruler has to be straight. Has to be straight. Yeah, let's make a tall building. And now, I'm going to need to make a perfectly horizontal line. Okay, so I've got my square. First thing I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and erase the horizon line out of this. We need to treat this. This is now a solid object. We're not going to see anything through that. Okay, now it's starting to look kind of solid. Now we're going to have to create the edges. These corners here are going to go back to the vanishing point. They're not going to go all the way. They're just going to go part of the way. Because my building doesn't continue back into space forever. Okay, I can't see my corners over here. I'm just going to trust. Okay. Now the side edge of my building needs to be perfectly parallel with this. Perfectly parallel. If it's doing this number, it doesn't look like a building anymore. If it's wobbly and wonky, it's not going to look correctly. This needs to be a perfectly vertical line. So, line up. Bottom edge of my ruler lined up to the bottom edge of my paper. There we go. Now notice this line here also goes back into perspective. Right now this is actually technically the bottom edge of my sidewalk, but still, this also needs to go back into perspective. This is a solid object now, so we don't see the horizon line. There's our first building. Now let's say I want to have another building back here. I'll need to start off with another square. So, let's see. I can either have the building directly up against this one here, or I can have it spaced back a little ways. If I do that, it's going to be a different kind of process for both. I can show you a little bit on each one. So, creating a building that is directly set up next against. Each building is going to have a face and a side. Just a moment. Let's say right now, this is this building that we're looking at right here. Now if I've got another building back behind it, I'm only going to be able to see, especially if this is directly in front of it, I'm only actually going to be able to see this side because I've got a second building. This is my first building now. Directly in front of it, I'm not going to see the face. I'm just going to see the side edge. So what I'll actually do, I can pretend that I've got the face of my building here if I wanted to. You could go ahead and draw that out if it made you feel better. But what I really, really need to do is decide where it's actually going to be. If it's below the horizon line, I'm going to see the top of it, which would mean that I would need to go ahead and draw that square in. If it's above the horizon line, it's a totally different story. But just for the sake of doing so, let's do this. I'm going to need to make a square. Lightly make a square. Now if this building is going to be directly next to this, it's going to start at this corner. Line up. Now this part here is going to be completely erased whenever we're done. Depends on how big you want to make the building. Okay, there we go. It looks a little funny. Bear with me. Bear with me. Okay, again, these need to be perfectly vertical and perfectly horizontal. Use that ruler. Use that ruler. Okay, so I'm going to try to make it below the horizon line so I can show you guys what actually is going on here. Okay. And that's all I really need to do because this is the edge of that other side. Now, since this is below the horizon line, this is directly at the horizon line. If it's below the horizon line, I see that top part. So, this corner, and this corner are going to go back to the vanishing point. Not all the way, just far enough. I'm using my fancy ruler now. So I'm going to take this back a little ways. And I'm going to take this back a little ways. The length of this one doesn't actually matter quite that much just yet. And this is technically already established by the sidewalk. So what I need to do now is I need to make a perfectly horizontal line. It needs to be exactly parallel with this. And then this part up here is a little bit more complicated. It'll be easy to really throw you off. Don't let it do it. Don't get confused. Step by step, inch by inch. Perfectly horizontal line. Okay, now this. This needs to be a perfectly vertical line from this corner. Don't worry about this line. Pretend that line doesn't exist for this particular moment. Okay, line up. See, I placed my pencil there, so that way I can't budge any further. Draw it on across. That's going to create that other box. Now, this building was here first. This building is in front of this building. Whatever I can see through it needs to go away. So I know that that goes away. That needs to go away. There we go. I now have another building here next to this one. Now let's say I want to have a small gap in between these two. If I'm doing that, it's going to be the exact same process. I'm just going to start a little further back. So, start off with a perfectly horizontal line. Perfectly. Oh yeah, I need to complete that square, don't I? Now please do remember to draw lightly whenever you are doing this process. If you're not drawing lightly, all of these lines that I'm making are going to show, and it's going to look like garbage. We don't want our work to look like garbage. Okay, another perfectly vertical line. How tall do I want to make this building? Ooh, I'm going to make it super tall. It's going to be fun and exciting. This building is rebellious. Ooh, cool. This will be exciting. Now, whenever you're making your buildings, you want to have that variety. You want to have different sizes, different thicknesses. It makes people want to look at your artwork. Okay. Alrighty. So, this is above the horizon line. If it is above the horizon line, I'm not going to see that top edge. So this corner and this corner go back into perspective. And you can go ahead and draw all four of those if you wanted to, if it will make it easier on you. Just remember to draw them lightly. Okay, now this, decide how thick I want my building to be. I need a perfectly vertical line. Okay, now, what's going to make this building seem set in our composition is deciding which lines to erase. This building is in front. We drew it first. So go on back. Anything that cuts through this building needs to go away. Let's follow on down this line here. Okay, this is my next building. Anything that cuts through this building needs to go away. This is the bottom edge of the building here. This needs to stay. Okay, now this is a solid object, but this is also a solid object. This is way, 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 way back here in the distance. This line here needs to go away. And that is going to create multiple buildings. Oh no, I missed a line. There we go. Now, if you start erasing your lines on accident as you go, just go ahead and do. Make sure it's nice and straight, though. Fake that back in. No one will ever know. All right. So, multiple buildings in perspective. It'll be the same sort of thing on this side. Say I want to have a building over here. It is the exact same concept. Only this time around, oops, I goofed that up. Only this time around, instead of seeing this side of the box, you're seeing this side. Now, I'm not even moving this box at all. Check this out. I can see this side. Now I can see this side. That's all we're doing here. And again, I will not see the horizon line through this. Same exact process. I need another vertical line. See, I've got a great big gap right back here. Make your square. Remember to draw lightly. These corners are going to go back to the vanishing point. Okay, this building is in front. Anything that cuts through it needs to go away. Okay, this is my next building. This is my horizon line. I'm not going to see that through there. Erase that on out. All right. There we go.